Now I'll call the January 4th Government Study Commission meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. For our opening comments, this meeting of the Government Study Commission is being provided via Zoom for the public unable to attend in person and who wish to view and hear the meeting live. Our official statement of purpose for the study is as follows. The purpose of the study is to explore the ways home rule could change the outcome of the pending sewer sale, explore the ways home rule could add citizen participation through referenda, and explore the ways home rule could add transparency to Towamencin's operations. Public comments received by 6 p.m. the day of the meeting will be read during the agenda item they address or during the open public comment period. For those present, a public comment period will be available after each voting item. Comments should be limited to 3 minutes each. In addition, a public comment period will be available at the end of the agenda. And we ask that those comments be limited to 3 minutes as well. Next on our agenda is approval of minutes. Would anyone like the motion?
Motion. Second.
Okay, motion second. Any questions, comments, or concerns? All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Motion carries. Okay, next on the agenda is an interview with Chris Monero. He is the Plymouth Township Council Chair and a Towamencin native. Chris, would you like to come up and sit near the mic?
Good evening.
And could you introduce yourself for the audience?
Sure. My name is Chris Monero. I'm the chair of Plymouth Township Council, Montgomery County. This is my 8th year on council, and it'll be my 4th year serving as chair. I've participated in the township on numerous projects. I've been the Parks and Rec Department liaison, as well as a liaison to our Emergency Services Board. Been a part of our township's budget and process of that over the last 7 years, in addition to our exploration of our sewer sale. I was, as you mentioned, Towamencin native. Plymouth is my favorite township because it's where I govern, but Towaменcin's my second favorite township.
Fair enough.
So, thank you. All right, so we have like 2 sections for this interview. The first section's on home rule and the second section's on your sewer sale exploration. First question is, what benefits have you seen from your home rule charter?
So I have to say that I can't compare a ton with home rule compared to any other designation, only because I've only ever been part of home rule. I know Plymouth has had a home rule charter since the 1970s. In terms of anything that's occurred on council since I've been on there, I don't believe we've had any specific actions that we've taken in my time on council that were specific to us having home rule. So I know you probably have a lot of questions about home rule itself. I just don't know how much I could say we've done things differently than we would do if we didn't have home rule.
Sure.
We haven't had any referendum issues that have come up in my time. We haven't had any specific things we've done beyond our scope that are related to home rule, as far as I know.
Okay. I think that's fine.
There's probably a lot more things you want to ask about home rule, but take a shot, but I'm not sure how much I can answer.
Sure. I think that eliminates a lot of the questions, but just to clarify, Plymouth and a lot of other home rule municipalities have initiative provisions for referendums. Have any of those provisions been used on your time during council?
We have not.
And then you've posted on Facebook about possibly doing a government study in Plymouth. Is there anything in particular that you would like to change in Plymouth's home rule charter?
And we did look over the last year. Our township has 4 wards. So we elect 5 members to our council, 4 by ward and 1 at large. So we looked at the option of possibly moving from a ward system to a completely at large system. And for various reasons, had we done that, if we do choose to do that, we would have to go through the government study commission process. We were getting set to possibly do that this year, and we were about a month behind schedule. We didn't want a government study list of candidates on a ballot in the same year as a township council list of candidates, just to avoid confusion. So we've really tabled it for now. If we do decide to go back and explore that, it wouldn't be until probably after this year, starting in the 2024 year. But it is something that we looked at, just really in terms of changing how we elect our members of council.
Question that wasn't on my list, but Plymouth has term limits, I believe. Is that correct?
We do. We have term limits of 4 years. You can serve 2 consecutive terms. You can serve again, but you have to take a term off.
Okay. And then with those term limits, have previous council members been active in Plymouth's government?
To my knowledge, there have been members who had been on council, had served their full 2, and then have come back and run again. Currently, all the members of council are not in that category. We're all either in our first or second term only.
Anyone else have questions on home rule?
Yeah, I just have a question around engagement from your community. I know that Plymouth has been a home rule for a very long time. Do you find that residents understand home rule charter, and are they engaged in council meetings, things like that?
To the first part, I would say most of our residents probably don't know
Mhm.
the difference between whether we're home rule or first class or second class.
Mhm.
We get varying levels of participation in our meetings, depending obviously, and I'm sure like Towamencin or anywhere, depending on the issues on the agenda that month. We'll go some months where we have very little, and then all of a sudden we'll show up one month and there'll be a room full of people. So I guess it really depends on what's on the agenda and what the hot button issues are.
Thank you.
Yeah. Are you familiar? Well, I guess my question is, do you know why they wrote the home rule charter to begin with? I know this was like 45, 50 years ago.
I wasn't born yet, but I think
Thank you for aging.
the only, the only, well, from what I've heard or understood is that at some point there in the 1970s, the laws changed and allowed municipalities to do it. So I think it was at that point where there was a trend maybe in some areas to do it. I'm not sure, what the debate was at the time, or, if there was a process they went through, but as far as I can tell, it was sort of in timing with their ability to do it.
So I guess the big change was you became a first-class township.
We're a first-class township with a home rule charter, I guess would be the official designation.
I guess before you were a second-class township.
I'm not 100% sure, but
Okay.
possible.
And I guess I assume that this thing with the voting districts that you have came from the home rule charter. I mean, it's in there.
Yeah, I believe it's in there. I don't know what it was like before that. But as in terms of, as far as I know, as long as we've been home rule, I believe we've had the same number, the 4 districts and 1 at large.
And this first class township code does allow for division into wards.
Just, I guess, to add, when we looked at the possibility of going away from wards and going to fully at large, it was varying factors, that we looked at. Number one being that we're not a township where each ward is necessarily very different. We really have a lot of the same issues. There are a lot of major arteries, Germantown Pike, Ridge Pike, that intersect multiple wards. So things like traffic, development, whether you're in Ward 1, Ward 2, Ward 3, Ward 4, they really all impact you. And then just also too, from an election standpoint, that making it easier to find a broader range of candidates from year to year, and finding it easier to, get people involved no matter what part of the township they lived in. So those are some of the things we've looked at as maybe benefits of moving away from a ward system. But of course, there's a lot of benefits to staying with a ward system, and that being people know more directly who to contact. It's more of a neighborhood kind of based government. But I can tell you as the chair that I get plenty of phone calls from people that don't live in my ward.
I bet you do.
Does anyone else have any questions on home rule? I have another question. Plymouth's charter is one of the rare ones that kept its tax limits. As a council, have you ran into situations where you'd want to get rid of that, or?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure what you're asking.
Yeah, it says, so all the Pennsylvania municipality codes have tax limits for property taxes and earned income tax. During your time on council, have you thought about getting rid of Plymouth's tax limit? Plymouth kept it in their charter.
We have not to my knowledge.
Any other questions on home rule? Would anyone in the audience want to ask a question about home rule? Okay. And we'll go on to the sewer cell part of the questions. Plymouth Township rejected a sewer cell. Could you describe the events and why the Plymouth Council eventually voted no?
Sure. Could be a long answer, so feel free to interrupt me. I first got on council in 2016. I guess it was probably at some point in 16 or 17 when the issue started to come up. So we really were looking at, that being relatively new for this trend of sale of public utilities or public sewer systems. Our biggest issue was that we had to renovate our municipal campus, our township building and police station, which are essentially part of the same building. And it was one of these things that we couldn't not do it. Like, we had to do it. The building was about 40 years old. Many things had never been repaired. It was starting to become to the point where we couldn't get parts to fix like our boiler, or, our roof was a roof built on top of another roof. Not enough space. The municipal offices had grown. The police station has needed renovation. So that was sort of like the kickoff of, man, we have to find a way to pay for this thing. And on top of that, there's been a lot of talk. We don't have any employees. We don't have any sewer employees. So the other part of the question was, do we want to be in the sewer business as a township? So I think it was kind of we started off by looking at it in two ways. One is this a utility we just want to continue to be in charge of? And number two, would selling it provide us with revenue to take on some municipal projects that were long overdue? So we started that process of looking at those questions.
Clarifying question. Do you contract out the operations of your sewer system?
We would for major repairs, things like that. I'm sure there's some minor things that we do on our own, but for major projects, if we have to replace a sewer interceptor, and those are all things that we would contract out.
So yes, who does the day-to-day for your sewer system?
Our public works would do sort of the minor maintenance work. So we started looking at the idea. We started looking at what other municipalities were doing. And again, that was probably about 2017. By 2018, I think is when we started to talk about it more publicly. We went through a series of public meetings to really look at several issues. The future of the township in terms of financial needs, combined with the idea of how could we pay for these things. So we held four, I guess you would call them town hall meetings, all the same meetings. So we held the same meeting 4 times, 2 during the day and 2 during the evening, 2 in one side of the township at a firehouse and 2 on the other end of the township at our community center. Again, just to give kind of variety of times and locations for people to attend. We put together a presentation that really outlined our future financial needs, particularly around the township municipal campus, and then the different possible options for how we could find the revenue to pay for those. The meetings were somewhat well attended, I guess. I'd say we had probably close to 80 people in total, so maybe about 20 members of the public on average at each meeting. Not a ton of participation from the public, but enough, and obviously people paying attention online and social media to what we were doing. Over the course of that time, we had several other people involved. We did have a evaluation done of our sewer system, I believe in 2017. So we kind of relatively knew what it was worth. We did work with PFM to sort of take us through that what that process would be if we did sell it. And we also had to actually hire outside counsel to represent us through that process because our township solicitor represented, I believe, the Conshohocken Authority, and there was a conflict of interest. So we had essentially to raise the money for our municipal campus and what the best way to do that was. When we got the analysis of what we would probably get for our sewer system, we did determine that we would probably get the money we needed to pay for our renovations almost on the dot. I mean, pretty much covering the full cost. And then we looked at, what we would have to do through tax revenue if we decided to keep the system and pay for the municipal project via tax increases. So ultimately, we looked at it and decided that the better option for that project would be to do it through tax revenue as opposed to selling the system. So I'm going to say it was probably about 2020 that we decided not to sell the system. So we're looking at probably about a 2.5-3 year process that we went through.
And then for those 4 meetings you had, did you need to be coerced by your residents, or was that something council thought of themselves?
No, I think we expected a little bit more input from residents than maybe we got. So we wanted to kind of be a little more proactive. But again, also, we didn't look at it as just a meeting about the sewer. We really wanted to put out there, hey, here's this big project coming up in the township. Here's these future needs. So I think we decided that we would sort of do it. We would do the initiative of having the meetings and getting public input. And there was not a ton of participants and not a lot of people that spoke publicly. But I would say that, most of the people that spoke publicly were probably advocating for us not to sell it. And we also looked at the option of leasing the system as another way to monetize it. We really didn't look at that as closely.
Can I just ask, clarifying, how many members of council are there?
5.
There's 5 total. And for the town halls that you did evaluation of your sewer system, but you never put it out to bid. You just.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And I should also say too, of the 5, when we started this, our council composition had changed over those periods of years. So the 5 members that were on council when we started discussing this in 2017 are not the same 5 members that were on by the time we decided not to sell it in 2020. And I don't think any of us went into it really sure what we wanted to do. And I would say there was probably a few of us that maybe wavered back and forth for a while. So we kind of went in, I think, as open-minded as we could.
Thank you.
What was the valuation of your system?
We were looking, I think, at probably getting somewhere in the $20 million range. We had done I guess they call it red line inspection of our system at some point and found that it was in pretty good shape. But again, not having actually put it out to bid, I think our expectation was that we would be somewhere in that $20 million ballpark.
And your population?
We're about 18,000.
17?
So it'd be somewhere between 17 and 18.
And number of households?
That's a good question.
I can get it online.
Yeah, I don't want to give you a fake answer. So
You're not sworn in.
Was that 20 million a depreciated? It sounds low, but I'm not sure how many people are connected to your system.
I don't know. I'm not sure I can give you a clear answer on that. And we do have, we have an interesting system in that we have some customers whose sewer flow goes to White Marsh Township. We have some that go to Conshohocken, and we have some that goes to the East Norton, Whippane, Plymouth joint sewer. So some of our sewage goes in a couple different directions.
Okay. And then were any of those municipalities involved in your exploration?
They were not, although I think East Norton had been further along in the process. They were in the process, I guess, of selling theirs when we started looking at ours. But we really didn't coordinate that with anybody else at the time.
Okay. And then was Plymouth involved in either East Norton's exploration or Conshohocken's?
We were not.
So we're 3 years past, we're starting the third year. You said you didn't go in 2020. How's it going? Do you feel like it was the right choice?
Yeah, so, again, I guess every township is very different. Like our tax base is different, our needs are different, our revenue is different. So I think for us, pretty low real estate taxes in Plymouth that had not been raised in, I think something like 25 or 27 years. And look, nobody wants to raise taxes. And I think 2016, 17, 18, 19, 20, those years I was on council, we didn't raise taxes any of those years either. And I think we were all very resistant to doing that. But ultimately, we didn't really have a choice. I mean, it's like that thing that governing is not easy. Like we had this $20 million project in front of us that we had to do. And we looked at, even with our municipal campus, of a lower renovation. We looked at knocking down the whole thing and building something brand new. And we ultimately kind of settled on doing something in the middle that we felt like would at least get us another 50 years in that building. So I would argue that we probably had a lot of room to increase taxes to the point where we really haven't heard much negative feedback. And I think we made it pretty clear that it was one of the two options. It was selling the system or it was looking at taxes. And then what we ended up doing, in terms of the tax increases, deciding how can we spread this out so that there's as little individual burden and making sure everyone's sort of paying their fair share. So we looked at a couple options with that. One being just increasing real estate taxes, one being just increasing the earned income tax. And the idea of just doing the earned income tax was, that way it wouldn't affect our lower income homeowners, seniors. But the problem then is that our commercial properties wouldn't be contributing. If we did just the real estate tax, we feel like there might be more of a burden on, those that maybe can't afford it. So we ended up doing sort of a combination of both, with spreading that increase over the real estate and the earned income so that it's a little bit of each. I don't know if you're interested in any numbers or where we went from and where we went to, but, I think overall, I wouldn't say we've been able to meet all of our financial needs by this, because we really looked at the need to raise money to renovate our municipal campus, as well as replenishing our capital budget for years to come. And I don't know that we've completely achieved that second part of the goal yet. That may have to come down the line. But we have been able to, at least for the most part, raise enough revenue to pay our debt service, although we're still paying some of that from our general fund as well.
Thank you.
I don't know if that was too much information.
That was good. That was good. Thank you.
And then how about the sewer system? Any rate hikes, and are you able to keep up with maintenance?
Yeah, so we, obviously we looked at that too, is, what would the rate increases be if we sold it? What will we need to do to maintain it and keep it ourselves? So we've had some rate increases in the last few years, probably per year, somewhere between 7% and 9% per year. We had a couple big projects that we knew were on the agenda coming up. So we definitely had to raise our sewer fund is pretty much, pays what it needs to. It's not profit. Our bills, our revenue is enough to cover our costs and have a small sewer fund balance. But I would say we'll probably be increasing rates in the single digits, 7 to 9% for a few years to pay for some of these projects we have coming up. Our just as a reference, I guess our average sewer bill. So our old rates, this is on an average household, were about $50. A quarter actually about $63 a quarter. This year they'll go up to about $68 a quarter, would be the average sewer bill for a household in Plymouth.
Anyone else have questions?
Just
Could you speak into the mic a little more, Marty?
Marty, speaking to the mic more.
You gotta lean in and like, there you go.
You made some mention before about a long-term capital. I mean, you guys have a long-term capital plan for your sewer system?
Yeah, we have like a sewer capital budget, and then we have our regular township capital budget. So we sort of keep those as two separate, the sewer fund and our general fund. The long-term capital fund that we were really looking at needing to replenish would be more of our general capital fund.
Okay.
I feel like we can keep the sewer fund where it's at, just based on rates and those things.
Okay.
Do you have a high population that's on septic or majority of your residents all on sewer?
No, I don't know the exact numbers, but I would say we're definitely larger majorities on public.
And then your residents seem to send a lot of different flow to different authorities. Have you considered consolidating some of those authorities publicly?
Not really. I think we just sort of accept that it's kind of how it has to go. We've had some issues with like when there's rate increases and trying to make it fair, but no talk of any kind of consolidation or anything.
Anyone else have any questions? Does anyone in the audience have any questions for Chris? Could you stand up to the mic?
Please state your name. And if you are a resident of the township or not.
Yeah, Mike Main. I live on Morse Road. I'm a resident of Towamencin. Real quick, just from what you were saying, you said PFM did your evaluation for Plymouth. Do you feel they did a good job with the analysis and evaluation?
Yeah, and I don't know that PFM did the initial valuation so much as they helped us kind of with what, hey, here's the process that you would take if you sold it. Yeah, I think they're the ones that kind of showed us, hey, if you sell, this is likely to be what your residents will see in rate increases. And that was sort of the number that I guess we looked at and said, okay, every resident's probably going to pay this much more on their sewer bill if we sell the system to raise our revenue, as opposed to if we look at tax increases to raise our revenue, this is what every resident's going to pay. So we kind of looked at what the difference would be. And I think we felt pretty comfortable with the information they gave us. And then we just kind of took that and made our own decision.
Yeah, I guess I'm at like, and so you feel the valuation was pretty close to correct. I just
Yeah,
asked.
I guess I wouldn't be an expert. To do
Yeah,
that.
that'd be tough. I'm just asking because I believe that was what Towamencin, the same company Towamencin used. So I was just trying to
Sure.
compare there. Thank you very much.
Then I have a question that's kind of similar then. So there's 3 stages to PFM's valuations. The first one is, do you even want to go through this? Were you only in stage 1? Is that when you decided?
Yeah, so we never got to any point of putting it out to bid.
Okay.
So I guess that would probably be stage 2.
Yeah.
I think.
So did PFM provide any projections on your township spending?
In terms of our,
If you sold the sewer, how much of the township spending would be covered by that cost? Did they?
I think they essentially confirmed like what we would likely get in terms of revenue for selling it. If that's what you're asking.
Did PFM ever do a presentation for your residents?
So the presentation that we did for our residents included some of the information from PFM in terms of the process, but I think PFM may have had representatives there in the event of any questions, I think. But the presentation itself really just came from, I think mostly it was actually led by the attorneys that were representing us, as well as the members of council who were at the meetings.
Thank you.
We actually have that whole presentation is still online. And I think if you just looked up, wrote this down somewhere, reaching out and planning ahead, Plymouth Township. If you Google that, it's like the first thing that comes up, reaching out and planning ahead, Plymouth Township.
Thank you. Does anyone else in the audience? Joe.
Joe Silverman, a resident. Let me get this clear. You said the price went up to about 68 a quarter, maybe 70, 280 a year. That's it, total?
Yeah, so our, for the first 7,000 gallons, it's like 55.26 per quarter, 3,500 additional gallons, 13.46. So again, I think what I have here is just sort of like the average for us, a quarter, 68.
Okay,
68,
so the
72 a
average
quarter.
family of four would pay about, 240, 250.
Right.
And then also, what's your millage rate?
So our millage rate, after this budget that we just passed, we sort of have our general real estate millage is 1.9, but then we have something called an emergency services fee that was added before I was on council, which it's money that can only be used for like our fire departments, our emergency services. So that's essentially combined, and our total millage is 2.62.
So what's a typical bill real estate for a house, let's say appraised at assessed at 150, 160,000?
I'm glad you're asking this because I actually brought this information. So I feel like
What's the
spent
state?
time well. Everything we have listed is based on an average assessment of 180,000. So this coming year, 2023, the average home that's assessed at 180,000 will pay $472 in real estate taxes.
Pretty reasonable.
We're very reasonable.
Well, I guess you have a lot of commercial.
So our revenue, our tax revenue is 12% comes from real estate tax, 26% from business tax, and 32% from earned income tax.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Sure. Earned income tax is 32%, business tax 26%, and real estate tax 12%. And just, if you're curious, so the question about the average household is paying $472 per year. And then our average commercial property assessed at 10 million would pay about 26,000 per year. That's just real estate taxes.
Does anyone else in the audience have a question or comment?
I'm Joyce Snyder. I'm a resident. I'm a little confused because I'm stupid, but you said that you don't have anyone that runs your sewer, and now I'm wondering how it works. Is it made with robots?
We don't have township specific employees. So in terms of like the maintenance of our sewer system, if something major breaks or there's something, we contract that out to people. So we don't have a sewer department. Our public works department handles some of the day-to-day, and then we would contract out for any major repairs. So
But I'm not really talking about the maintenance. I'm talking about like running the sewer.
just flush our toilets.
There's no sewer plant in Plymouth.
There is a sewer, we don't have a sewer plant in Plymouth,
Ah,
but there are other plants. There's an East Norton, Plymouth, and Whitpain Joint Sewer Authority. There's a plant in Conshohocken that some of ours goes to. So the sewer, I mean, Lauren might be able to answer that a little bit better than me.
Yeah, Plymouth has a collection system. So it's all the pipes that are in the ground and all that. There's a few pump stations, I believe. But the sewage all goes to other municipalities, and their plants are located in other municipalities. Those municipalities run the sewage treatment plants.
so when you're talking about selling your sewer, you're talking about selling your pipes, not your plant.
That's correct. That is correct.
Now I understand so much more.
And by the way, I didn't understand any of that about 4 years ago either.
We all learned much more about sewers than we.
You got that right.
Does anyone else in the audience have a question or comment? Do any of the other study commissioners have any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Chris,
Thank you.
thank you.
All right. Next on our agenda is the appointment to fill the Government Study Commission vacancy. As noted at our last meeting, Dunlap did not take an oath of office, so there's a vacancy on the Government Study Commission to be filled by appointment. Does anyone in the audience have a public comment on this agenda item? Sure. Would anyone?
Go to the mic. Is there a comment or?
Hi, my name's Nancy Becker. I'm a resident. I just have a question about that. From all I read, the commission people had to be sworn in within 10 days, and 6 of you were, which is exactly correct. But if 7 were and 1 resigned, I could understand why you would appoint 1. But since you started with 6 and duly have a quorum, why is, I mean, it's supposed to be an elected board. Why would you appoint someone at this point? I just don't, I'm not a lawyer. I just don't understand how that's happening.
Lauren?
Sure, because there was the oath was not taken within the 10-day period, there was a vacancy created in the office, and so the board is considering appointing someone to fill that vacancy.
Okay, I'm sorry, I still don't understand, but I just thought that if Don would have been sworn in and resigned, I could understand why you could appoint. I just don't understand how you can appoint when only 6 are sworn in, and having the 6 of them would always be a quorum. So you wouldn't really need a 7th, because then you're appointing someone that was not elected.
And that's how vacancies function. When there is a vacancy, there's someone appointed by the remaining members of the commission to fill that vacancy.
Okay.
This is common in home rule charter, in government study commissions, correct?
My understanding is yes, it is.
Yeah.
It's common on many elected boards and commissions and that sort of thing.
Right.
Does anyone else in the audience have a comment on this agenda item? Seeing none, would anyone like to nominate someone to appoint to this vacancy?
I make a motion to appoint. I make a motion to appoint Joseph Rumsey.
Well, second.
And any questions, comments, or concerns? Any public comments on the appointment? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Motion carries. Okay, and next on the agenda is to elect the vice secretary officer position. Commissioner Cohen currently holds both the treasurer and vice secretary office, and we would like to elect someone else so he isn't holding both seats. Does anyone in the audience have a public comment on this agenda item? Would anyone like to nominate someone to appoint to vice secretary?
Can we motion to appoint Joe Rumsey? I motion to appoint Joe Rumsey as vice secretary.
Well, second.
Any questions, comments, or concerns? And would anyone in the audience like to make a public comment about this nomination? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any nays or abstentions? No, motion carries. And Joe's not taking his oath tonight, so he will act as a vice secretary after he gets a chance to take that oath. And Commissioner Foster prepared a statement on vacancies.
Thank you. It's come to our attention that some misinformation on Don Lepp's decision not to serve is circulating in and outside of our community. So with Don's permission, we'd like to address this. Don Lepp is a valuable member of the NOTE movement and humbly volunteered to serve as a member on this commission. He is well known in the community as a firefighter for Towamencin and previously served as one of the township's elected auditors. Up until the week before our swearing in, Don had every intention of serving. However, due to personal issues related to his health, notified us that he would no longer be able to do so. We want to be clear. Don is completely aligned to this commission's purpose, and there was no other reason for this resignation other than his desire to take care of his health. Vacancies in commissions such as these are not uncommon. According to the PA Home Rule Handbook, vacancies have occurred in more than 1 out of 5 commissions for any number of reasons. Some commissions have appointed an alternate member to fill a vacancy, others have put out applications, and still others have chosen to appoint the candidate with the next highest vote total of that who was elected. A commission may choose the way in which they fill this vacancy in accordance with Subpart E, Chapter 29 of Title 53 in the General Assembly. And that reads as follows. In case of a vacancy in the Government Study Commission, the remaining members of the commission shall fill it by appointing thereto some other properly qualified elector. At our December 6th organizational meeting, we addressed this expected vacancy as well as named an alternate member of our commission. Alternates are also not uncommon and according to the PA Home Rule Handbook are often used in government study commissions. Alternates are non-voting members and can quickly fill vacancies should one come up. Our decision to appoint our alternate as the 7th member of our commission is based on 2 things. 1, this commission has a specific purpose and short timeline for which to study the government and make any proposal for a home rule charter. 2, our purpose is clear. We want to explore how home rule can prevent the sale of our wastewater to a private entity. No one on the opposing slate shares in this purpose. In fact, the candidate that had the next highest vote count has spoken publicly on her desire to see this sale go through, as well as a lack of desire to study the government. We hope that this clears up any confusion around what our requirements are in filling vacancies, as well as prevents any further misinformation campaigns against this commission or any of its members.
Thank you, Jen. Next on our agenda is a presentation on our budget. Marty's going to go ahead with that.
Okay.
Marty, did you get a chance to send this budget presentation to the township?
I did not.
Okay, I can probably pull it up. So 1 second.
There are copies that I have put out there for the budget. I don't know if you have all seen that. But it's right by the agenda, by that wooden barrel as you walk in.
I can pull it. Nero, if I email this to you, can you bring it? We have a presentation. If I email it to yeah, I just emailed it.
Oh.
Whenever you're ready.
Okay. All right, you can flip the slide to the next page, the overall budget. So these are the major categories that we have for our budget. The solicitor, $21,525. Mailings, that's our primary way of communication with the public, is $12,912.77. Court recorder for public meeting is $1,100. You can see the other lesser expenses, but the total is $37,136.86. Next slide, the solicitor is Rudolph Clark LLC. The estimate is for 80 hours, 75 hours for attorneys, and a minimal amount for paralegal. And you can see the breakdown, $21,000 for the attorney and $525 for paralegal, for a total of $21,525. Next slide are the mailings. We're looking at 2 mailings to township residents. Again, the total estimated cost is just under $13,000. The first mailing would announce scheduled and public hearing meetings to 5,824 households. And then there would also be a mailing that would possibly include the same number of households. Could be a copy of the home rule charter and final report. And then also include a town hall meeting date and election date for notification. Next slide. Court recorder. This is required for the public hearing where the recorder transcribes verbal testimony into the written record. 1 public hearing is required for a government study commission. The recorder bills for 4 hours, which comes to $1,100. Next page is for the website. And that's for communicating actions, information, reference material, government study commission to residents and sewer customers. Subscription cost is $23 per month plus tax. And there you see the breakdown, which includes the website and as well as a domain name, for a total of $165 for 6 months. Do we currently have that website up and running?
No, to approve the budget first.
Yeah, I think there's, Vanessa, you're still developing it, correct?
Okay, because it would be good to provide this at the very least at these meetings, maybe on any slides that we show. It'd be nice to have that on the screen. Okay, the next one is Zoom access to meetings. Next slide. The account charges $42.38 a month for 6 months, so that's $254. Next slide is the legal notices. They are required to announce the following scheduled meeting. The first organizational meeting, which we had December the 6th, and that has already been paid. And the 6 scheduled meetings for January, February, and March, the 1st and 3rd Wednesdays of the month. And then also it's required for a public hearing, and also for a town hall meeting. Next slide, legal notices for page 2. So that was previously paid for the organizational meeting, and the 6 regularly scheduled meetings has also been paid. And then I'm assuming $160 to announce the public hearing and the town hall meeting. Next slide is the town hall meeting. So we would be looking at rental of the high school Odeon for 1 town hall meeting. The rental cost is $10 a meeting. We're just planning on having 1 town hall meeting. We may or may not require IT help to project on the screens, but there was no charge for that. So total for town hall meetings is $10. Printing. So we have the following categories: printing up the agendas, the budget presentation, copies of the home rule charter for 3 meetings, 3 regularly scheduled meetings, and then also copies of the home rule charter, plus a draft of the final report for the 1 town hall. These are the number of copies, and we're figuring that this is going to be 10 cents a copy, so the total for that is $558. And the last slide, the township has provided services for meeting spaces and IT for meetings. And previous home rule charter efforts, legal costs in Pennsylvania have been paid for by the municipality. This is somewhat unusual in that regard. The legal cost for this home rule charter effort is, again, $21,525. Average legal costs for previous home rule charter efforts averaged just $539 between 1972 and 1980, and did not include attorney fees, which were picked up by the township that was sponsoring this. Are there any questions? Yes.
Again, Nancy Becker, Township resident. I want to thank you. This is very comprehensive and very detailed. I just have a question. Where were these meetings advertised?
They were advertised in the Reporter.
In the Reporter and the public notices?
In the legal notices.
Legal notices. Thank you very much. And again, thank you. This is very comprehensive.
Any other public comments on the proposed budget? Need a motion to approve this budget for presentation and transmission to the Board of Supervisors.
Motion. Second.
Who motion?
I'm not sure. Thank you.
Any questions, comments, or concerns? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? None. Motion carries.
One thing, Kofi, I'd like to bring up is I'm going to send a official transmittal email of this to the township, just so they have an official record.
Sure. Thank you. So next on our agenda is to approve prior spending to send to the township. We had to spend a little bit of money for this commission before we had a chance to develop a budget. We paid for 1 month of the website subscription, which was $21.94. We paid for the full year of the domain name, which is $21.20. We paid for 2 advertising notices in the paper. The first one was $151.21. The second one was $140.56. And we paid for 2 months of Zoom at $42.38 each. As well as that, we'd like to send mail pretty soon, probably before the Board of Supervisors gets a chance to approve the budget. So we'd like to also include the cost of sending that mail, which is $3,421.78. So the total costs that we've spent or would have spent by the time the Board of Supervisors gets a chance to look at this budget will be $3,841.45. The website was invoiced to Vanessa Gaynor. the advertising was invoiced directly to the township. The Zoom was invoiced to me and the mailings will be invoiced to the township. Is that right, Jen?
Yes.
And can I get a motion to approve that spending?
I make motion.
Second.
Any questions, comments, or concerns? Any public comments? Yeah. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? None, motion carries. Okay. And the next two items on the agenda are some scheduling items. With our first goal of the study being how we can affect the outcome of the pending sewer sale. We have a bit of a timeline from my research from the section 1329 application, which is the acquisition application to close. It's taken at least 9 months. Usually takes about a year if it closes. NextEra has not submitted a acquisition application yet. So we should have at least 6 months, but we might not have the other time. So if we do want to write a charter that stops the sewer sale, we would have to put that on the May ballot. So we have these two scheduling items that I want to put on. First is to schedule the required public hearing. Would anyone like to make a motion to schedule that meeting
Motion.
and the date?
What was the date that we had talked about with the motion?
March 1 would be the best. one.
right.
Yeah.
So
April
mo-
20.
No, March 1.
March
public
1.
hearing.
So motion to have the public hearing on March the 1st.
Second.
And is there any public comments on this agenda item? Any questions, comments, or concerns?
Just have a question about, will we, or will the township, I guess, find out when the filing occurs on a date from the PUC? Is that advertised online? And how do we know when that's happening?
So all the PUC documents are on the PUC docket website. And if NextEra files an application, the township will know, and anyone else who's a party to the application.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any nays or abstentions? None, motion carries. Okay. Next on the agenda is to schedule a town hall at the high school. The high school gave the dates of April 10th and April 24th as for their availability. Would anyone like to make a motion for one of those two dates?
Yeah, I'll motion for April 24th.
Second.
Any public comments on this agenda item? Yes.
Hi, I'm Vanessa Gaynor. I'm a Towamencin resident. I was just hoping you could elaborate on the difference between a public hearing and a town hall.
Sure. So the public hearing would have a court reporter, and that would be to get a lot of input on the draft of the charter if we vote to have one. By this April date, we would have voted on this charter if we choose to have it in May. So this town hall would be more to just answer any questions, so residents are informed for the election. Any other public comments?
Good evening. Joe Mann. I've been a township resident for over 50 years. And in that 50 years, I've been a volunteer on many, many committees for the township. And I've always wanted to do what I thought was the best for the township. The township always came first in my mind. I saw some parallels here between what Chris was saying and what we have here. Those parallels, let's start with the first one. He said, why did they even consider selling the sewer system in Plymouth? He said, because it was a need. I see that there is a desperate need in Towamencin for money. Money is the key here. When I moved into this township, there was nothing here. There was the Inglewood development and farms. Since that time, all these developments have come about. That's in 50 years. All the infrastructure that goes with all those developments is 50 years old now, and it's falling apart. We have to do something with all these pipes, all the infrastructure, and if we don't, it's going to be more costly in the future. We have to do something almost immediately in my mind. I'm a civil engineer. That's why this strikes home with me. I know what can happen when things are neglected. You look at the pipes, you look at all the capital improvements that are needed in the facilities in the township. Things like the MS4 requirements that are tossed on the township by a mandate by the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. You have to address those issues. They're very, very costly. I look at, because I'm involved with the open space and parks, we built 2 restrooms in 2019 for Gristmill Park and Green Lane Park. They cost over $400,000 a piece. And we still have other parks that need those restrooms. Our kids are running to Wawa up at Butch Clemens Field because there's no restrooms there. That's not acceptable. And that's one thing that we see as one of our priorities to address. How much is that going to cost? Probably right now it's going to be $1.5 million, $1,250,000. Who knows? Getting back to another thing that Chris said, he said that the sewer valuation was about $20,000. And what did they expect to get back in the sale of the sewer? Was probably enough to recoup that plus some additional money that they can use for some of these improvements. Well, put yourself in Chris's case or Plymouth Township supervisors or commissioners' place. If they put their sewer system up for sale, knowing that the evaluation was $20,000 and they were offered $115, I said $20 million, and they were offered $115 million for it. What would you do if you were in their place? It was the money. They needed the money. It would have been a no-brainer to them. Just like to me, it was a no-brainer that the township sold this sewer system. We need the money. And that's behind us now. But you are charged with coming up with something that is the best for the township. And I just ask that you consider all the problems in the near future and the far future as you go through this process. And you do the same thing that I've been trying to do for many, many years. Do the best for this township. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? On the town hall specifically, that's fine, but this is the town hall public comment. And we'll have the open public comment after. That's fine. Any questions, comments, or concerns about the motion?
Do we need to tell the high school? We need to reserve that space
Yes,
for that date, probably. Okay.
and we're looking at 24th.
Talk to the mic. Can you talk?
We're looking at the 24th of April.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments, or concerns? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? None, motion carries. And the last item on the agenda is the open public comment period on anything related to the government study. Could you let Joe Silverman talk first, since you just had your comment? Yes.
Our views don't agree. Joe Silverman, a resident, 53 years, going on 54. For $400,000, you know, I could build a nice mansion. I don't see why we had to spend 400 just for a bathroom. You could put a porta potty there. It's not a big deal, you know. Secondly, I just want to thank the group commissioners, Kofi, who's been instrumental in starting this whole operation going and putting in a lot of time. And all the volunteers, all the public who signed petitions. And I hope that this whole thing comes to fruition. Now, Joe, you can go.
No, the first thing I have to say is I apologize for jumping the gun there on that first statement that I made. And second, Joe, you can't have little kids using porta potties. How many people in the township would say, just let them use porta potties? It doesn't, it's not serving the township. It makes the township seem like a second, no, I avoided saying that, but what I meant was not a nice place to live. You find, you just can't do that. And I agree totally. And I truly, really appreciate this township, appreciate the neighborhoods that we have and everything, but hey, I'm opposed to porta potties. So you spend the money, you spend the money to build a decent restroom that's going to last for 50 years. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to give a public comment?
Kristen Warner, Old Morris Road. Been a 25-year resident of Towamencin Township. This whole, I understand where you're coming from, the concern over the sewer sale and why you want this possible home rule to stop that in your minds. But once you create a home rule, that's what we have going forth to run our government. It's not just about the sewer, it's about our entire government and how this township will run for the next, I mean, it's been 150 years of second-class township management. It's not perfect, but I think it's been run pretty well. And it basically runs itself. And there's a lot of controls that are put on the board and the management of the township from second-class township code. The book's this fat. My concern is that this is being rushed through. You know, you're already talking about, let's get it on the ballot in May. that's really rushing a process that, from what I've read, is tough to do in 18 months. And you have up to 18 months to do a proper home rule study. We need to have forethought as to the overall picture, not just one item, not just the sewer. And the other comment I wanted to make was, I appreciated the interview with someone from a different township. It was interesting to hear their perspective. But it's not a parallel situation. Like he said, every township is different. Every township has its infrastructure, its income base, its basic, makeup of residents. So it's hard for, I think it would be hard for us to find any township in Pennsylvania, possibly even anywhere in any other state, that exactly matches our township. So we need to make an evaluation for what our needs are and what our future projections for not just bathrooms, but pipes in the ground. Plymouth doesn't have a plant. We have a plant that needs work, and we don't farm out all of our sewer to 3 different authorities. It's all within house. So
30 more seconds, please.
I just think we need to evaluate this very carefully, because once this is done, this is how things will be for a very long time. And not sure that a home rule is a horrible idea, but I really want to understand, and I think every township resident, whether they're here at these meetings or not, would like to know that it's been properly evaluated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And just 2 comments on those last 2 public comments. I believe it was said at the last township meeting that we're working on our long-term planning. So I would encourage everyone here who's interested in what the township is spending on to attend the Board of Supervisors meeting. And if we vote to draft a charter, the charter will be available to be read. So if you don't agree with it, I would encourage you to campaign against the ballot question. Go ahead.
Nancy Becker, Township resident. I remember and I can't remember exactly when, but there was raw sewage running down Town Pike. There was a moratorium on building. No one could even put a toilet in their house because of the deplorable condition of the pipes. And at the time, the supervisors, in their forethought, talked to all the developers who had intention to build in the township and asked them to pay for their sewer connections prior to even approval of their building. That was a horrible time. I know my neighbors, we all had new houses. Some of them wanted to put in a restroom, they couldn't do it. And I don't want to see that happen again here in Towamencin. And I don't know if developers would be as willing in the 2023 and on to pay up front as they were back in probably the 80s, 1980s. So, you know, not selling the sewer. And somebody said, I said I was in favor of the sewer sale. I didn't say that. I had no real opinion of the sewer sale. But to put township residents in jeopardy again by not selling and not having the money to fix it, I think is something that you should consider. I don't think any of you lived here when you went down Sunny Town Pike, they had big pipes on the street that was carrying the sewer because the pipes had collapsed. So you have to be aware of how to maintain the sewer plant and what it will take. And to change our whole form of government for this, I find deplorable. Thank you.
Yeah. And the township does charge tapping fees for developers. So when you build a new building, you do have to pay upfront. The township charges tapping fees to developers. So when you build a new building, you have to pay upfront.
That still takes place throughout the Commonwealth. It's a reservation of capacity. So developers will pay for their tapping fees years in advance in order to reserve that capacity.
Joe.
Joe Silverman, resident. Nancy, I remember that time well, 1985, August, I think it was. They backdated Joe Zadlow, who was the zoning officer, backdated 18 building permits so that some builders could build before that August date. And I have documentation on it. Of course, he was fired. And talking about the failure of the transite pipe, asbestos cement pipe in front of the Green Baron. You remember Green Baron, of course. They had a failure, a collapse of the pipe because I think it was Clemens was sending down untreated sewage, and the ammonia, as I recall, I think it was ammonia that was, the gases were eroding the Portland cement that supports the pipe. The pipe is basically Portland cement with asbestos fibers. And they dug it up and they replaced it. Then they had a failure on Town Pike and Montgomery Avenue, which is now Bustard Road. They dug down and replaced it. This is all basic routine maintenance. There's nothing in the world that I can think of that engineers designed and manufactured that doesn't need maintenance. The human body has an immune system that repairs itself. Trees heal, but all other infrastructure, needs constant maintenance. And this is something that has to be factored into anything. So, we've done quite well over all those years. I think the plant was built in '68 or so. And, it's working fine. Thank you.
Thank you. And then to comment on those two things, Towamencin Supervisor Wilson did say the plant's well maintained, and at the meeting to vote to sell, he said this wouldn't make any sense if we were just looking at the sewer system. So I don't think the plant's a big problem here. Any other public comment? Do any of the other commissioners have anything else to say?
I would just like to thank the township for including our meeting date on the township webpage, tonight's meeting.
Any other comment? Okay, I'd like to motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? All right, meeting is adjourned.